guys, welcome to the new mini video series Oceanic View. In these video series, we'll pick up certain relevant topics for discussion, often related to the Ocean Providence and the current world. You'll find that Ocean Providence is an important piece of the puzzle to solving the various issues of the world we're facing today. Today's topic is hunger and why it is more devastating than people usually think, and that it is an absolutely pressing issue that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. Also, we will explain that the hunger problem is the most acute manifestation of inequality in modern human civilization. Often, people who live in advanced countries such as the United States do not see the hunger problem as an urgent problem, but as a problem that is far away, occurring somewhere across the seas to someone that we are not related to. In this video, we want to close in on this issue so that we understand how serious and urgent it is when we think about world peace. So in this video, we will discuss why the hunger problem is one of the most fundamental and pressing problems that rivals problems like wars and climate change, and why the hunger problem is so difficult to solve even when humanity has advanced so far economically and technologically. Now let's get into it by first quoting Reverend Myung Moon. Hunger is the most serious problem we face in the world today and in the future. Solving the food crisis cannot be put off for even a moment. Even now, some 20,000 people around the world die of hunger-related causes each day. We cannot afford to be apathetic just because we and our immediate families are not facing hunger. The issues of food will present humankind with a very serious crisis in the future. We cannot build a world of peace without first resolving the food issue. So, why is hunger such a pressing issue? Reason 1, hunger is so devastating because it affects so many people. According to WFP, in 2019, there were about 821 million people who still go to bed on an empty stomach every night. That is 1 in every 9 people. Although the number had been decreasing slowly over the years due to economic growth, since 2014, the number of hungry people had been once again slowly on the rise. They project that at this rate, it will exceed 840 million by the year 2030. That's more than twice the size of the total population of the United States. Reason 2, hunger is so devastating. Because hunger causes an annual number of deaths equivalent to the most devastating wars in human history. By far, the most costly war in terms of human life was World War II, in which the total number of fatalities, including battle deaths and civilians of all countries, is estimated to have been 56.4 million. The average death toll was about 10 million during World War II over the period of about 6 years. In comparison, the hunger problem causes 9 million deaths per year consistently, with no end in sight. Reason 3, hunger is so devastating because hunger causes permanent damage to hundreds of millions of children. You may have heard of stunted growth problems that hungry children experience, where, because of malnutrition, children grow up to be shorter in height and skinnier than average children. For example, it is said that 40% of sub-Saharan African children have the malnutrition problem, which affects their growth. They are often much shorter than average children. And it does not affect only the height, it affects brain growth as well. In other words, hunger not only affects the physical growth of children, it limits the brain growth as well, limiting their potential as human beings permanently. The famous billionaire Bill Gates talks about hunger. He says, if you don't fix this problem, chronic malnutrition, everything else you do is not going to get you there. Not education, not infrastructure, not even good governance. According to WFP, stunting due to malnutrition in the first 2 years of a child's life is largely irreversible. A child cannot recover height in the same way that they can regain weight. Stunted children fall sick more often, miss opportunities to learn, perform less well in school, and grow up to be economically disadvantaged and more likely to suffer from chronic illnesses. According to FAO, malnutrition is the single largest contributor to disease in the world. Among the annual 9 million deaths due to hunger, 5 million are children under the age of 5 years old. And even if they survived, they have a high chance of suffering from disease and permanent physical and mental damages. So, as long as we have hunger, we will continue to have many problems, because the people will be disadvantaged physically and mentally. Reason for hunger is so devastating. Hunger is so miserable that it can take away your humanity. Starvation is simply one of the most miserable conditions human beings can have. Imagine the psychological effect this type of chronic situation has for human beings when they have to beg or fight for every piece of food, and that is the lifestyle they have known since childhood. There is very little room for human dignity, self-esteem, and a sense of independence. Reverend Moon, who had been imprisoned in the Hungnam prison, the labor concentration camp in North Korea during the Korean War, has talked about the severe state of hunger the prisoners were in. So much that when a fellow prisoner died while eating rice, others would fight to dig out the food from the dead prisoner's mouth to eat it. What dignity or self-respect is left as a human being when a person is driven to act that way? Now imagine children growing up with such an animalistic psychological state. We talked about how miserable and devastating the hunger problem is. Now let's talk about why it has been so difficult for humanity to solve this problem after so many centuries. One reason why the hunger problem is difficult to solve is because hunger is strongly tied to other major social problems like poverty, wars, and climate change. The first principal cause of hunger is poverty. More than 10% of the world's population lives in extreme poverty, where individual income is less than $1.90 a day. Under this condition, it is very hard to buy enough food. For example, across sub-Saharan Africa and southern Asia, about 57% of the population is unable to afford a healthy diet. It is also known that hunger is a cause of poverty because hunger can lead to even greater poverty for the hungry population by damaging their abilities to work and learn, thus leading to a greater hunger. The second principal cause of hunger is war and conflict. Just as poverty and hunger create a perpetuating cycle, war and hunger are also in a cyclical relationship. Often, civil wars are caused by resentments toward the government due to extreme hunger. And at the same time, wars often deepen the miserable conditions of hunger. In war and conflict, the poorest and the hungriest suffer the most. The hunger and inequality have been the driving forces for dictators and communist regimes to come into power at times of extreme economic struggle, as in the case of Hitler and Stalin. Recently, many predict that climate change could become the leading cause of hunger. For example, many scholars during IPCC have predicted that by the year 2050, there could be hundreds of millions of refugees that will be displaced by shoreline erosion, coastal flooding, and agricultural disruption. Without support, there is no question that most of these people will become hungry. Other causes of hunger include poor infrastructures, where it becomes difficult for people to grow and or distribute food, and unstable markets, where the food price fluctuations can cause poor people to suddenly not be able to afford enough food. Second complexity about the hunger problem is that there has always been enough food for everyone, but having enough food has not been enough to solve the hunger problem. Are you confused yet? WFP, the World Food Program, says that hunger is the world's greatest solvable problem because it is well known that there is enough food in the world to feed the world, but they do not really reach the ones that need them the most. To illustrate this point, IFRC reported in 2010 there were 1.5 billion people suffering obesity worldwide, while 925 million were undernourished. Basically, there are more obese people in the world than hungry people. The problem was never the production of food. Technologies have allowed humanity to produce food more efficiently and reliably than any other time in history. We now produce more than enough food for everyone. The problem has always been how we distributed food. This is not only true across countries, but also is often the case even within each nation. Take the case of highly agricultural Paraguay. Back in the year 2000, Paraguay used to be one of the most hungry countries in Latin America. However, it has since steadily grown to become a new economic power in the region. The hungry population has been reduced from about 20% to less than 10% in just 10 years. However, it is very strange to find that there is even a 10% hungry population because the country has only about 7 million people, while it produces enough food for about 80 million people. So, where did the food go? And why do they still have so many hungry people while they produce so much excess food? The answer is easy. Most of the produced food is exported and does not reach these hungry 10% located close by. Why does this happen? Paraguay, like most other nations, has a free market, capitalistic economy. In history, capitalism has brought amazing productivity and has propelled humanity to its modern technological glory. However, it has always battled with a chronic disease called social inequality, where the benefits of economic and technological advancements are enjoyed mostly by the ones that are wealthy. Because capitalism runs with the goal of maximizing individual profits, it is hard for the products to flow towards the hungry people unless there is enough motivation, money. Hungry communities usually have very little money and are located in places with little logistical infrastructure. Therefore, food producers have little to no incentive to distribute the food towards them. From a capitalistic point of view, why would any business give out or sell the food for much less profit to the poor when they have higher paying customers abroad? Although there are countless non-profit organizations that try to bring food to the starved, their efforts have never been enough, as shown in the statistics. There are many types and levels of social inequality, but starvation problem is the most devastating and acute manifestation of inequality in modern human civilization. This will be another topic, but inequality is a systematic problem in almost any human society and is the main reason for ideological wars between capitalism and socialism. Therefore, the hunger problem, which represents inequality, is a very, very complicated problem to solve. So let's summarize. First, we spoke about the devastating nature of the hunger problem. We said that the hunger problem causes more deaths than the worst wars in human society in terms of number of deaths. And just like wars perpetuate physical and emotional scars that will last generations to resolve, the hunger problem also perpetuates generations of poverty by creating clear physical and mental disadvantages to massive numbers of people around the world that will take generations to resolve. If we seek to have world peace, we must recognize that this problem needs to be solved urgently because the negative effects are massive and echoes throughout generations. Second, we spoke about the complexity of the problem. We said that the problem is not just the amount of food that we produce, but how we distribute them. And as we are often in a free market capitalistic system, it naturally becomes difficult for food to flow to those in need. Hunger is really the most acute manifestation of inequalities among human beings who are brothers and sisters under God. The hunger problem is very solvable because humanity has enough resources to solve it. However, under our current ideological and economic systems, we have always failed to eradicate this problem. We will get into this topic in another video. I hope you can now see that the problem of hunger is an absolutely pressing issue that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. To learn more and to keep updated, please consider subscribing. Bye!